So founder of Desklight and author of Learning in the Wild,
Mm-hmm.
which I definitely want to talk about both of those things. I'm excited. I know you're excited about the book too, which you launched. How long ago has it been now? A few months?
Probably about a year and a half ago now.
Nice, nice. And I saw you were named one of the 100 women to know
Mm-hmm.
in America, according to Chase JP Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious how you won that. Like, what makes someone the 100 person or top woman to know?
It was a really funny story. I had an email come in. It was one of those emails where you're like, is this real or not so much?
Yeah.
And, followed through with the Zoom call and did an interview with them, and
Wow.
I got selected. And I guess they interviewed quite a few people across the country. And the best part of the whole thing was flying to Scottsdale and being in the room with all of the winners. And
Wow.
they hosted a big awards night, and it was unlike anything I've ever done in terms
Really?
of amazing women all
Really?
in the
That's
same room
cool.
together.
I bet.
It was really great.
Probably did some good networking. You probably still talk to some of those people,
Oh,
I
yeah.
imagine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. And you got to go to Scottsdale, so that's always nice.
Mm-hmm.
How would you sum up what you do in a sentence or two for those listening right now to kind of orient them?
Yeah, we help make learning experiences better. We take what is usually in place that's typically punitive and not so fun to get through, and we make learning craveable and more enjoyable for everybody to go through. And that includes, equity as well as accessibility and just fun, just reinventing what is known to be learning out there in adult learning circles and trainings, So I love to bring my passion for creativity and my background in branding and agencies and stuff to this world of instructional design, because typically it's not so great.
It's boring, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's hard to learn when you're not having fun.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some level. That's why I've always been big into edutainment,
Mm-hmm.
Entertaining as you educate from content standpoint, from video content standpoint, because if you can educate people while you're giving them some level of entertainment or engagement, they're going to stick around more. They're going to be more interested. They're going to be more engaged. And
Absolutely. I'm always saying that our learning experiences need to be as great as any consumer experience. And why aren't they? And typically they're not very funded. And so we're out to reinvent that and change that narrative, change that story, because I feel like if we're asking people to sit through a learning experience, it should be worth their time and their investment.
Yeah. How do humans learn? What do you know about the way that we learn? And has that changed over time from what we've discovered recently?
There's a lot of cognitive science behind, how we retain information and how we decide that our brains will get hooked into certain kinds of learning. So there's things like repeated, just going back through and figuring out what the recall and repetition pace needs to look like to get things into our minds. There's a lot to say about going back to information that you haven't quite locked in yet. That's what my TED Talk is actually about, where you can go back and revisit something again and again and not say that it's done, not to tell yourself that it's completely done. And your brain actually helps you to remember that information better and work on it sort of subliminally behind the scenes before you call it done. So you are actually training your brain, designing your brain to help you to push through and come up with better ideas. There's a book called Make It Stick. That's one of the best books out there around cognitive science and learning retention.
And when I was a kid, and I think they're all throughout my schooling, they always said that everyone learns a little bit differently. Is that still true today from what we know?
Everybody does learn a little bit differently, and then sorting out the difference between pedagogy and andragogy as well. So
what is that?
Pedagogy is K-12 learning principles. So we typically treat our kids in a way where we don't give them any authority or permission to bring their previous experiences to the table, because we assume that they don't have previous experiences or they haven't been exposed to certain information before.
Right.
And kids in K-12 and in adult learning circles, they all learn very differently. We all have different things that we bring to the table. Although the typical ideas around visual learner versus auditory learner.
That's what I remember hearing about,
versus kinesthetic
trying
learner.
to figure out which one am I, I think I'm a visual. But also doing. I know I'm not like a reader. If I read something, I'm like, I'll retain it a little bit, but sometimes I got to go back and read something again because I'm like, I don't know if I really got that.
Yeah. There's some science behind it now that says that that's not completely true that everybody's one or
Right.
like one of the three, but
Yeah.
to your point, like it's a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of other stuff in between all of that too, in
Mhm.
terms of ways that we can design things to be retained more effectively. Andragogy is different than pedagogy because we believe that we know that people as adults want to be invited into recognizing and talking about what they already know or what they've already done in their
Totally.
lives.
Yeah.
So, in these cohorts, like, hey, Alex, tell me about the time you went to Barcelona when we're studying Spain.
Yeah.
You're sitting there like, I went to Barcelona. I want to talk about this experience.
Yes, totally. Yes.
So that's one thing around Andragogy that's different. Another thing is just applying that knowledge right away, in 5 minutes from now or tomorrow. Otherwise, the trainer or the chief learning officer shouldn't be offering that information that soon until that learner can actually apply that information, because it's kind of in one ear out the other. So there's things that we're thinking about around how to design good learning for adults that I think apply to kids too, because now that kids have so much more access to things on YouTube and AI, we should be treating them like adults as it relates to learning in some ways.
Do you look at the learnings in school, the way we teach kids? Do you think that system's a little bit broken?
Very.
Yeah,
Very
not even
broken.
a little. Very. I was being nice.
Very broken.
Yeah. How so?
Uh,
I agree. I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old.
mhm.
And there are some things I'm like, I think they all have good hearts and like they've been great people, but there's just the system, not the teach, but the system just seems like it's old. Like it hasn't evolved quite the way we'd want it to.
Yeah, the system was built a long time ago when the system was built for serving what we needed.
Right.
We were growing little adults that were going to work in factories or, be asked to essentially be implementers in some system.
Right.
But now we need students to be creative thinkers and emotionally intelligent and entrepreneurs, and all the things that the system is putting on our kids are things that arguably can be done with technology now.
Yeah. That's what's scary. It's like
it's
learn all these
scary.
things. Like I can literally go to ChatGPT and type this or Google.
Yeah.
It's like my kid's learning what someone else is doing in 2 seconds on a computer. There's some fundamentals I think that you need to learn, like math, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like the whole system's skewed towards that. They're going to get out and be like, well, what did I just do all that for?
Yeah, and the schools are telling a lot of the kids not to use AI,
Right.
which is completely the wrong narrative in my
Yes.
opinion. So there's a lot of work being done around how to integrate AI with teacher best practices, and sometimes when we're going straight to the students with AI, I don't think it's necessarily right because the teachers really need a lot of help to support the students. The students need as much human face time as we can possibly give them for all of the reasons around growth and human development. So to sub in an AI versus an actual human in the classroom, I think is kind of short-sighted. But to use AI to help teachers teach better and help and be empathetic to their experience and what they're trying to do, because they're all so overworked and
Totally.
And yeah, just in general, sitting in a classroom all day. No adult would want to do that.
No adult ever would want to do that.
Yeah.
I know, even though some jobs you are in a cubicle all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, man, that would drive me crazy. I'm in here 1 day a week to do the podcast. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm like, I can't wait to get out of here.
Right.
I like doing the podcast, but after that, I'm like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stuck in, 4 walls all day.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot being done around, student narratives around what if we got them out of the classrooms on field trips almost every day, if we can, thinking about, funding and timing and all of that, but ideal state, get them out and into the world, get them working on projects.
Yeah.
Project-based learning is a huge thing right now.
Why do you think it doesn't change as fast as we'd like it to, the education system? It seems like we all agree. Every single person I talk to, like, yep, education system's broken, but it's like, what are we doing about it? Pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
It's like if this was an entrepreneurial system or company, I feel like we would just identify a problem and almost immediately start working towards the solution. I know it's a big problem and there's a lot of systemic stuff, and politics and things like that. But it just seems like we're just kind of not moving very fast.
It's such a huge question and so much systemic. If you move one piece, if you move one thing on the chessboard, the rest you have to be thinking about all the intended and unintended consequences of what that means. So it's one of those things like which direction to kind of take it in, but I think it's because the schools are supporting kids in ways that they weren't ever meant to support the kids, and there's a lot of
What do you mean by that?
expectation. Equity wise, there's a lot of needs that students have that schools are fulfilling for lower underserved kids. There's a lot of emotional and social support that schools are providing. So that means that we can't redesign the classroom experience as fast for the sake of the funding and the ability for us to look across all of the schools and say we're doing our best to provide as much access and equity to all the kids in the public schools across the country in different cities. I think independent schools have an opportunity and have always done stuff outside the box that public school districts can look at for inspiration and data and understanding of like what's going right and what's not going quite right. Montessori schools have a really interesting way of, for example, putting together a project plan for a student at the top of a week, and the student is able to kind of go through that project plan sort of as they need to or want to throughout the week. And as long as they're done with their work by Friday afternoon, then, the teacher says, great, you did a good job. And it allows for them to kind of do more if they are really passionate about something. And then the teachers are able to see like, oh, Knox is really good at math and we should challenge him a little bit more because he actually seems to enjoy it. So
you must have a son named Knox or something.
I do.
Okay, I was gonna say, no one would throw out that name. That's a unique name. Yeah. Okay.
So
very cool. And how old is he?
He's 15.
15. Cool. Is that your only child?
Yep.
Nice. Cool. I'm really curious on how you've worked with him on the learning stuff too. But I also want to get to, I know you're like, that's not your niche, is the school system, right? You guys.
I feel like that was a kind of a messy answer there. There's so much there to say.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I agree with everything that you said. And to bring it back to adults, because obviously you work with companies and help them develop learning systems and things like that to obviously grow. What are some misconceptions that companies have about learning?
One size fits all. The way that we just talked about, learners don't all learn in the same way, and we can't just give a new onboarded person a learning pathway and expect them to be on it and be happy about it and feel like it's meant for them. So there's a lot of out-of-the-box trainings that aren't quite right and don't quite fit, so it makes the learning feel punitive. So I think that's one thing that companies don't quite get right or maybe misunderstand.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more opportunity to design their experience in terms of internal learning and development as a benefit, almost like an employee benefit. I think that's an opportunity that when we bring that idea to some of these leadership teams, they're like, oh, I hadn't quite thought about it in that way, where I'm thinking about a benefit as something I pay for externally for the sake of my team. But this is something that we could generate and customize that would become almost like a brand ambassador moment for us internally as much as externally.
I could see some business leaders being like, what's the ROI of my employees continuously learning? And what do you say when they start bringing up that conversation? And just what, maybe if they don't even ask, but maybe just what have you seen in terms of return or outcomes or transformations on, you got company A over here that doesn't really have any, they throw a book every now and then to an employee. And then you got company B over here that really has embraced a lot of the things that maybe you guys teach or implement that, man, they're a learning just facility. They're a learning organization. What do those companies look like?
Yeah, I think certainly the notion of employee retention and longevity and ability to pivot inside of the company. IBM is a great example of this, where also Salesforce, they've really thought a lot about what learning can look like, and even internal badging systems and ideas around how to know that certain employees are interested in things and that they're ready and capable to be either upskilled or have been upskilled into different positions within the company. I think, too, just on the level of being a company ambassador, I think it's good for companies to invest in the whole person while they're at that company or organization. And so they can not only be a good ambassador while they're there with customers or with
Yeah.
other employees, but as they move on, they will always know, gosh, that company really invested in me like no other company had ever done. So the ROI is actually really great because those people become ambassadors and talk so well about the company and all
Right.
that they learned, almost like a university experience
Yeah.
or any kind of certification experience like a General Assembly or academy that they might go through. So to position the company not only as a company or an organization serving outside stakeholders, but also internal stakeholders that are customers.
So how does a company do it? Because I know, like, I talked about most companies, I've been guilty of this too. You get a book. It's like, let's read this book. Or like you have, some bigger companies have online courses or modules. God forbid you have to go through those.
Mm-hmm.
I've went through some corporate modules are brutal. And you kind of skip through them as fast as you can. But how does a company create an environment where everyone's learning or continuously improving? Like, what does that physically look like?
Yeah. We often work on what we call learning ecosystems. And so we design a strategy. It's essentially a learning strategic plan where we're thinking about what the whole ecosystem should and can look like, from the big conference that people do every year to the mentorship relationship to performance metrics that are linked to some of that, to micro learning on your phone, to talking in a small group with people about what you learned from going through the conference or that micro learning. So that's certainly what we mean by the customization approach, to really thinking about all of the potential moments to learn and leveraging those a lot, and then
Right.
connecting them to each other. So that's like the macro answer to the question. And then the micro answer is, once you get into some of the learnings themselves, rather than like, oh gosh, I just want to get through it and check the box,
Right.
to say, okay, where are these opportunities for feedback loops throughout
Yeah.
the course or module themselves? How about reflection moments where people are asked to journal or reflect back into, the e-learning, for example, about how they're feeling, what they're thinking about, what they think they can apply tomorrow in their job. And that's a way for the learning designers and the team who's offering the learning to really get that data back too, to say, okay, we know that Jane really learned that. She retained it from this experience because she was able to repeat back inside of the module what she learned. So the customization is important within the design too, because feedback loops are often missed if it's just off the shelf and you just like have the employee check the box, but it doesn't really mean anything for the data
Right.
that you're looking for.
Yeah, I feel like conferences can be a big waste of time. If you go there and just it's about having some drinks, socializing. There's like big raha or what is it called? A big like motivational type talk, and then it's like you kind of go back to your office a couple days later, and then nothing really happens. Nothing really changes, right?
Yes.
So how do we change that?
Oh, man.
I was like, how much time you got? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's similar in my mind to the sage on the stage philosophy where, you listen to a 3-hour lecture in higher ed and you're like, I have no idea what that person just said.
Yeah.
Similar to conferences where you sit there and listen for 45 minutes, an hour, and then maybe there's some Q&A, which I feel like is usually the win for the entirety of that hour.
For sure.
Because people are actually able to reflect back to the speaker, this is what I heard and this is what I'm still wondering about. And then you, as the audience member, can either question the question or to say, yeah, that was my question too. And I feel connected to that person who asked the question and to the speaker because I was able to interact with that. So I think if you have like 5 minutes to redesign a conference, I would say, at least give people in the round tables or with the person next to you an opportunity to like talk about what you're learning, or just pause throughout that hour to say, what do you think about that? Or have you had this experience? Talk to your neighbor for 30 seconds about it. So anything to break up the content so it's not so monotonous, like you're saying, and just like, oh man, and really pushes the audience to listen and to be curious about the information.
Sometimes I wonder if, I've done a few keynotes and things like that on stage, and you've done TEDx and that kind of stuff too. I sometimes wonder if it wouldn't be better just to do 5 minutes, 10 minutes on stage, bring a really good point of view or topic to the centerpiece, talk about it, add a little value, and then go, we're going to Q&A.
Yeah.
And just spend 30, 40 minutes in Q&A.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
And
it does seem like that's where the impact is because it's specific. There's context. You're getting the audience involved. Even as a spectator, someone else in the audience not asking a question, you're curious too, or maybe they're asking a question that you wanted to ask, but you
hmm
weren't bold enough to stand up and ask it. But it's almost like you're curious to see where are they going to go with this. And there's
hmm
a little bit of that like reality TV kind of behind the scenes at play.
hmm
And I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of impact there.
Absolutely. Some of the best talks I've heard are people that get up and do exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
5-10 minutes. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm here to talk about.
Yeah.
Here's my expertise. Here's like 3 points of my
Yeah.
framework. And then pausing and saying, okay, I want to hear from you guys. What are your questions? Or to say, we're going to practice what I just talked about for 3 minutes.
There you go.
And then he'll talk or she'll talk again. And then a more Q&A at the end of the
Yeah.
whole thing. So breaking it up, going back and forth, and really it does become more of a conversation with the audience.
I think that's so key. I kind of think the 60-minute stand on stage, just giving a keynote is kind of dead
Mm-hmm.
to a certain degree. You have to find ways to engage the audience.
Yeah.
Even Marcus Sheridan, who sort of been a mentor to me, but also a client. I don't know if you know him or not, or have seen him on LinkedIn, but he gets in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't just do a keynote on stage. He gets off the stage, goes in the crowd, asks questions, looks for responses, challenges, and it just makes it more dynamic and it makes it more interesting and engaging. And I think that's something I always try to think about if I'm going to go on stage is
Yeah.
how do I engage that audience as fast as possible and keep them engaged throughout the entire keynote or speech.
Yeah, absolutely. And a trend that I'm hearing and seeing, frankly, is that people will go to these mega conferences and not even go to the conference. They'll go and reserve a place at the hotel and go and have these one-on-one meetings or these cohorts
Really?
and do what they need to do or want to do to connect with the people that are there.
Yeah.
Because the audience plan or the event planners aren't really thinking too much about the empathy that you're talking about, like walk the room or, the exchange. But then also it's just, we call it dosages in instructional design world. Like the dosage is so high that people get so tired.
Yeah.
And it's just too much for 3 or 4 days.
Yes.
So micro conferences or just like giving people a more highly designed experience of all these different touch points, breaking it up, making it more fun, accessible, interesting,
Yeah.
all the things.
One of the challenges I think we have as humans, but definitely founders, employees in the workspace, is that there's so much you can learn. How do you kind of decipher, I'm taking in all this stuff. Like how do I then apply this? Like, do I break it down into chunks? I'm going to conference or I've got something coming up or I'm a seminar, whatever it is, or maybe it's an online thing I'm doing. How do I determine what I should store and take action on versus what I can learn and then kind of move on from?
I think it's important to have some self-assessment time first to know, what am I working on in this season of my life,
Yeah.
whether it's professionally or personally, because there's so much information in the world right now and you can have access to pretty much anything. So I think it takes some personal time first to really think about, where do I want to spend this time? And then once you know where you're going and why, you have your why well intact, you can go out and seek out those opportunities and then think about, is it something I want to do in person?
Mhm.
Or is it something that I feel like I could get enough access to in free webinars or with AI? And how much do you want to spend on that particular topic area on your own? So I like to think of them as mini projects.
Yeah.
So you can really brief it, think about it on your own, and then seek out all of the potential things to put on that project plate that would fill it. And then that next level, as you're saying, is to think about, how might I retain it best? Do I need to, take a week sabbatical and really simmer in this stuff and really think about it so that I can pivot after that week? Is it something pretty big and profound that I'm looking to change about my life or my work? Versus, hey, I feel like I just need to get better, sharper, and I can spend 6 months working on this little mini project on the side, and I don't need to make it, hierarchy number 8 on my list versus I should make it
Right.
number 8 versus number 1 on my list. So, just thinking about it as a project and thinking about what the right dosages and context should be for that.
One of the themes that keeps coming up in these conversations on the podcast is slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all just moving too damn fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the next level, the next client, the next revenue milestone. And it's like, sometimes it's just, why? stop and ask yourself, why? Why do I need to hit this certain mark? Why do I need to go to this specific place? How is that going to impact my life? And slowing down is tough when you're a founder entrepreneur, especially because you feel pressure. You've got your team, you've got yourself, your family, you've got growth potential, you've got all these things. And it's like, sometimes I think we miss out on so many things because we're just going so fast and we don't stop to say, all right, first of all, let's enjoy the moment that we're in. Let's enjoy the season that we're in, because you have ups and downs. But one thing I've learned over the years is trying to enjoy the downs. When it is tough, say, you know what, maybe we have less clients right now. I have more time with family or friends, or to do this, or work on the business that I couldn't get to this area before. Maybe we're really busy. Let me enjoy that, because now it creates other opportunities for us that we didn't have before. And I think that's just such a missing ingredient. Is just slowing down. And that's where you can kind of process things and do the self-assessments and then figure out, what do I need to do next to get to the next part in this journey that I'm on?
Absolutely. It reminds me of Sahal Bloom's newsletter from last week. He talks about this idea of...
Who is that? I've heard of that guy.
He has a book that just came out called The 5 Types of Wealth. I highly recommend it. And
maybe I've seen him on a podcast or something. I feel like the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's great. I read all of his stuff. He's really insightful about everything we've really been talking about.
Yeah.
But it links up perfectly with what you just said. He talks about when things are slower, or when we start to feel stressed or even grieving because things aren't going our way. Look back into what he calls the boats that you're building and make sure things are tight, make sure things are ready to go for when it does get fast again and when you do have that next opportunity. And so leveraging that time instead of grieving that time and feeling like, oh, it's actually a good thing that I'm forced to slow down or stop, and I can, make sure everything's tidy and fixed up and ready to go for when I need it to go next time.
How do you learn on a daily basis? Like, well, how much learning do you do every day, and what type of learning, and where do you get your information from?
Yeah, I really love audiobooks because I can walk and listen or drive and listen. And so I feel like it fits really well into my lifestyle and what I'm looking to do. So I've always got something going on Audible. I only get the 2 newsletters of news every day, the New York Times and 1440. So I feel like the dosage is right for me on that. And then, I love to really get, depending on the client work that we have at the moment, I love to go pretty deeply into different rabbit holes around academic papers, or we're working with a client, for example, right now, and the focus is sustainability and conservation. So I'm loving just learning about that. So that's, I think, the advantage of being a service-based business and a consultant, where you get to learn about so many different things all the time.
Yes.
Sometimes it feels very challenging, but oftentimes it feels really enjoyable and fun because you're able to know so much about so many different things.
Do you think some people are just more naturally curious and wanting to learn than others?
I think so. Absolutely. Oftentimes I think about the difference between people that are keep things on the tracks people versus curious people and innovators and visionaries. And I think both are really needed in the world. Seth Godin talks about this a lot in his book, The Linchpin. So, I think absolutely. Some people are like, I just want to make sure there's gas in the car, and I want to know that car is going to be trustworthy for a long time, and I'm just going to do my thing. And some people are, always reinventing and thinking differently about how the world works and trying to break things just to break them and see if they still work. And we need each other. Yeah.
I always wondered about that, because whether it's like a business conversation, or I remember the dating days, you're going on dates and stuff, and it's like you'd meet some people that were genuinely curious about you and wanted to know, like, oh, what made you get into that? And, oh, that's interesting. Like, why'd that happen? Or what's going on over here? And then you get some people that just didn't seem interested. They just didn't seem curious. And whether it was like, obviously there's an interest level between the person, but even outside of that, it was just like, they're just not that curious. Like, because even if I'm not interested in someone, if I'm sitting across from them, I'm still going to be curious. I'm like, well, how'd you get here? And what are you doing? And why does it matter? And I don't know, I'm just genuinely curious about things. Or I may see an article about something and I'm down a rabbit hole about, how fast the Earth's moving in space or something. It's just like, it's just like, I don't know, I'm kind of drawn into that stuff. But I feel like you encounter some people that just don't seem to have that natural curiosity or wanting to learn, the desire to like, I am obsessed with learning new stuff all the time, to the point where I have like 15 books I need to read, and I haven't read any of them because I'm like, this would be cool. This would be cool. And I'm like, Alex, you actually got to read the damn book. Like, don't buy 15. Just buy one and read one at a time. But I think that's kind of like what you're talking about, which is like having the visionary, the curiosity mindset versus some people are a little bit more like, I'm going to read the book 10 pages a day, 20 pages a day, keep it on track. Yep. And other people are like constantly trying to do something new or figure something out.
Right. And then the question for ourselves is it obligatory or not, right? To read that book, do you feel like you should, or are you really enjoying it?
Yes.
I think there's a lot to say there. But yeah, just the sure sign of knowing if somebody's really curious, in my mind, is people that ask questions without having to ask questions.
That's right.
They just ask them.
Yeah.
And the art of winning friends and influencing people, that old Dale Carnegie book still stands true.
Still true today.
Yeah.
Go read it if you haven't. I mean, it's a dinosaur of a book, but it's just the principles in there.
Golden.
Spot on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really, that is such a small thing that it's such a simple thing that people can do. If you want to increase business or you want to make more friends or you're dating, if you just show interest in other people and get curious genuinely too, you can kind of tell when people are like, how's it going? Good. How are you? Good. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I try to avoid that as much as possible. And I think it's become like a norm in society. So it's fine. We all say it like, hey, how's it going? But I try when I hop on like calls with clients, I try to think, how can I start this conversation a little differently than just, how's it going? Good. How are you? Good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was that? You know what I mean? It was just like a formality type of thing where maybe I'll try to ask like, what's exciting right now? What are you working on that you're pumped about? Or, man, how'd that concert go last night? Or something that maybe about them.
Right.
I think that's key.
It's fun to think about those kinds of conversations as icebreaker conversations, almost like from an improv point of view, right?
Yeah.
The Second City thing.
Yeah.
And the yes and, having a good time with it.
Yes.
So thinking about like, okay, I'm going to this party or I'm going to this conference or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, what are some fun questions that I could ask knowing my audience and thinking about, what do I really want to learn from these folks that are here? Just a little bit of thought on that it makes your own experience and everyone else's experience so much more fruitful.
And sometimes you don't have time to ask, like go down that, like if you're on a call with somebody, you got a little bit of time, you can ask like, hey, what's exciting right now that you're pumped about? Mm-hmm. You got time. But if you're crossing paths, this happens a lot, where we're just kind of like, we're crossing the hallway or like walking to our car or like something like that. And it's like, hey, how you doing? Good. How are you? Good. I think in those cases, I try to say like good morning or good afternoon or hey, versus saying something that just doesn't feel as genuine.
Right.
Kind of just going through the motions.
Right.
And I know some people might be like, what's the big deal? It's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's being a little bit intentional.
Absolutely. And, people remember how you make them feel more than what you ask. So sometimes people get really nervous about figuring out what those questions are or what should I say. And a risk is better than no risk.
I agree. Yeah.
And totally. You never know what people will say, even though it might turn into feeling like an SNL episode or skit or something like that.
You got to be prepared for that if it goes there. Yeah, right. Totally. So if you had no budget for a company, what are some ambitious learning kind of tools or systems that you might create for a company listening right now that they're like, all right, small to medium-sized company, we don't have huge funds to build some big, intricate system or whatever. But what are some things we could do the next 90 days to help our people and team and company as a whole learn more? And I guess the second question is, what are they learning about? Is it their expertise? Is it, is it team building? Like what should they focus on?
Yeah. I think with no budget, if they were going to do it internally, I think first and foremost, figuring out what that learning plan should be from a business or organizational perspective. Like what are our goals for ourselves and our people? And doing the hard work to figure that out, almost like writing a strategic plan.
Yeah.
So that everyone's holding hands around those ideas and everybody knows where they're going. What's the North Star?
That's key. Otherwise, it's like, oh, we're just learning shit.
Right.
It's like, but we're learning it to get to a place.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So what do we want out of any kind of learning engagement? And then what do we want our learners to get out of a learning engagement? Where do we want to take them? Where do we feel like there's holes in their learning? Do we need to upskill them around a new product or service or leadership development kinds of situations, whatever it is. And then asking the learners truly, not just surveying them,
Yeah.
but asking the employees or the customers, whoever those learning audiences are, what do you guys really need and want to learn? And oftentimes they have never been asked in our experience.
Yeah.
Truly.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have never been asked. So just having a really good, authentic, frank conversation about what do you feel like you could learn here, and what are you curious about, where are you going in your life? And many people don't feel like they have social permission at their place of work to be that honest until asked. So asking them and inviting them in is, I think, the next step around this question. And then the third is to, kind of start to workshop through, co-create together around what is it that we could build that would support this desired response from the learners, and then also support our strategic goals as a company.
What would you say to the CEO that's like, look, they're going to learn from doing the job here. If they want to learn outside of that, they can do it on their own time.
Yeah, I think in our experience, when people talk about learning on the job, there's a lot of gaps. They think they know, but maybe they don't know how to do it correctly according to the company or organization, or they want to learn more in order to move up in the company. And of course, the benefit for that company or org is retention and historic knowledge that's inside that person, that it would cost a lot of time and money to onboard that next person.
Yeah.
So even if they're learning on the job, in my POV, there's always opportunity to make that a better experience for everybody involved.
I agree. And what would you say on the flip side, if we have a huge budget, we want to go all out, we want to just, do whatever we can from a learning standpoint, what would you do then?
Yeah. Well, of course, my mind goes to what we do at DeskLight.
Yeah, of course. No, that's exactly it.
Yeah. We offer a series of workshops, and those all tee up together, and then they stack. So we now have a lot of annual subscriptions with clients that we rinse and repeat and do multiple workshops and work that glues those workshops together. So the first one is an insights workshop where we gather data that I was just describing in partnership with the leadership team to understand what the learner needs and wants, what the org needs and wants. And we do a workshop to talk through all of those insights and then deliver a synthesis doc back to the org. And then we do blueprinting, which is strategic planning for learning. So it's a big learning strategy, get everybody on the same page, deliver a strategy at the end of that. And then the third one is innovation workshops. So this is where we work together to really develop a program like soup to nuts from ground up, or we look at a program that's been around for a while and we really volumize it and change it up and think about it from that learner ecosystem point of view to make it better, sharper, more effective on all those levels. And then we offer a Learning in the Wild retreat.
There you go, book,
to kind of talk through those learning principles, those ideas in the book. And then we do field trips too, to take people out of the office and help them understand something new. So maybe it's to somebody else's factory floor, or to 10 coffee shops, or to a leadership retreat to talk with them about leadership best practices. And so it can look different, but we're the facilitators of those experiences to get people out of the office and into a new place to learn and talk about some of this stuff.
How is AI changing the way that we learn? Because I read a lot of articles and stuff around it's making us dumber, because people are going to AI first before trying to solve a problem or think creatively, instead of using it as an assistant or like a something you can kind of co-work with.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just going straight to AI.
Yes. I like to call it a dance partnership.
Yeah.
Because it humanizes a little bit, and because you need the human to be in that dance partnership. You can't outsource the whole dance.
Right. Exactly.
And you shouldn't, right?
Some people are, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's changing a lot about how we learn and how we work. AI slop is a real thing, and it's getting worse. Essentially the idea where you put something together, just minimum, into AI, and you have it make something.
Yeah.
And then you give it a little more direction, you have it make something again. And then say you're like 10 reps in to that outcome and you're like, this is not good. This
Yeah.
is slop. I should just start over with my own brain.
Right.
And we've all been there. And it's
Yes.
frustrating because you've just wasted an hour
Right.
and now you have nothing.
Thinking you were taking a shortcut.
Yes.
And then you got cut short. And
Yes.
then you had to start over. Yeah.
It's like a teacher saying, this paper is terrible. You need to just start from scratch.
Yes.
It's the same emotional feeling. So how do we prevent that? How do we think differently about that? I would say, yeah, to your point, we talk a lot about Desklight about not outsourcing our creative writing ability because it's important and we don't want to lose our ability to write well and creatively and thoughtfully. So pushing ourselves and our teams to continue to write and journal and whatever that looks like to make sure we stay human.
Yeah.
Because it's not only good for ourselves, but in terms of the tech outcome, we need good stuff in the tech in order to continue to have an ability to have AI shape us. So,
That's a big piece that you hit on too, which is, we're looking for the output that we want to use with our writing or whatever we're doing, journaling, whatever. We want to create something that's good potentially for the world, hopefully. And maybe use a little AI in there, but it's also good for our soul. It's also good to stretch the creative muscle. It's just like anything else. If you don't use it, you kind of lose it.
Yeah.
Like I was huge into doing these creative skit videos for a while. Stopped doing it, focused on other stuff, which I'm happy with, but I'm coming back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just like looking at the blank like notes app and I was like, where do I start with this shit? Like I haven't done it in so long. I'm like, it seemed like I was just coming up with creative ideas after idea after idea after idea years ago. And now it's like I'm sitting there. I haven't changed. I haven't gotten like less creative. I just haven't like stressed that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used it. And then sure enough, I'm like, just go in and Alex, because you've learned this before. If you just got to like start doing it. It doesn't matter if the quality's good, you have the best idea. Just start the writing process.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, I'm like coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
And then how I used AI in there, like I thought of this skit video where someone uses AI in automation for like everything, like it's their shortcut. And then pretty soon AI like starts replacing them slowly. And it's like this whole like Black Mirror kind of skit video. It's really cool. It'll be cool when it's done. But what I did with ChatGPT is I said, hey, I'm working on this. This is the skit video I'm working on. Here's what I want to have happen. I want it to be like a Black Mirror episode. Here's the start of it. And then maybe I'll have it like, give me some ideas on like, what are some one-liners that might be funny? Or what are some angles? And it gave me a couple. It's like, oh, you're at the office. And then someone walks by and says, hey, man, your comments recently have been weird. Like you're doing a bunch of rocket emojis and you got a quote from Dennis Rodman. It was like, what's going on with you? And he's like, wait a second, I am. And he's like, then he starts going down this rabbit hole, but it didn't write the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It was, to your point, it was like a little bit of a dance partner that I kind of pulled in, but I had the dance, I had the song, I had the vision for it.
And there's those gems, like you're saying, like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Almost like a creative director, a co-dancer, a choreographer, like, oh, I'll take that piece. And that piece is interesting.
Yes.
But it didn't rewrite the entire thing.
Exactly.
So, that's great.
Because if you try to do that, if you just say, hey, write me a skit video on X, Y, and Z, it's going to fall short. And it's not going to be you, and you're not going to be able to flex those creative muscles. Mm-hmm. We got a couple questions and then I want to talk about your book. A couple questions from our Founder Talk Club, which is full of people that listen to the show. They ask questions about, on the guest. And then the founders that come on the show, you guys are part of a lounge, a VIP lounge. If you want to be a part of it, connect with other founders. One of the questions was from Magdalena. She said, where do you see the biggest opportunities for innovation in workspace learning over the next 3 to 5 years?
Gosh, I think it goes with a lot of the things we've been talking about. I think we'll see less formal learning in terms of innovation, not calling it learning necessarily. We'll see less.
Calling it what, though?
Not even calling it anything, like burying it inside of the workflow itself. That's, to me, where the innovation lies in learning and development teams that, partnering with HR leads and chief learning officers to think about, what if we embedded inside of the innovation practice or created more links with the innovation practice in general? So we're not only teaching people things explicitly, but they're also part of the workflow every day anyway. So I think we'll just see more innovation in terms of like closing that gap. Because culturally, we want people to uptake things and be more excited about learning And if we don't call it learning and we call it just, you know, getting a bit better, faster at this particular task tomorrow, it's easier to digest.
Next question from Gail. She said, how do you turn in-person training to virtual and vice versa? She said, as a training facilitator, that's my biggest challenge. Also, how do you handle tough conversations with clients who see training as a check the box versus growing / investing in people long term? So let's do how do you turn in-person training to virtual and virtual training to in-person?
Yeah, I think hybridity is definitely best if you can do it. Have a bit just slimmer version of the in-person, and then bring the rest of it, whatever it is, into an online forum. I think if you have to go 100% virtual, you can think about it being live time in a Zoom with people in the cohort or the webinar or whatever, and then also change some of it or most of it into async, so people can learn in their own time without having to show up for a webinar at a specific time. So that's something that sometimes our client partners haven't really thought about. Like, it has to stay virtual, but there are still opportunities to design what that looks like and how that feels. So it can be async, it could be sync, and then it could be micro learning on your phone. And we have tools that we use that, you know, we can make 3-minute, 30-second micro learnings that show up on people's phones. They click, they roll through it, and they're done. And then they can come back to that, you know, live Zoom, and then the async.
I gotcha, yeah.
And it all kind of goes together. So
that's kind of cool.
There's ways around it to design it that are still enjoyable for the learner.
Yeah. Do you guys use apps and things like that, or do you have your own proprietary systems? Or
no, we're LMS and tool agnostic. We use third-party tools to make things that make sense for the learning.
There's a bunch of cool stuff out there.
There's so many things that are already great, and then we just customize them.
Why start a software company?
Yes.
It's not worth it. Yeah. So you wrote a book, Learning in the Wild. Curious what made you write that book?
Yeah, I wanted it to be a love letter to our clients. I
Really?
felt like there were a lot of articles that I've written on our website and on Medium and all these different places with, you know, professional associations and clients and things like that. And also just wanted to share my experience of having worked 100% of my career as a consultant, and specifically as an innovation consultant from being a young designer, and what that means to bring that calibration of consumer innovation to the world of learning. And in quick conversations, it just felt really hard to convey all of that information and all of what I was really excited to share with our clients and prospective clients. So I put it all in a book.
What was the writing process like? I'm always curious, because I think one day I'll write a book, but I think it's got to be something that like really calls to you.
Yeah.
And you guys, I got to write a book, right?
Yes.
What was the process like? Because I imagine, oh my God, it just seems so much.
Yes, it can feel very overwhelming. It certainly did feel very overwhelming at first.
Just writing every day, or like, how did you?
No. Jenny Blake was a coach of mine at the time, and she's written a few different books, and she's wonderful. She also wrote something online about how to support authors to create their books. So she has a bit of a rubric for what success looks like. And so I went through what she had taught me and started with Post-it notes on the back of my office door. And I have pictures on my Instagram. I sort of documented the whole journey of what it felt like to do this. So yeah, started with just Post-its with random ideas that I would come up with. And then those random ideas became sections. And then the sections started to become chapters. And then at that point, I took a staycation in Chicago, and I just went downtown. I spent the night, and I wrote as much as I possibly could.
Really?
For as long as I could around these chapters. And then I let it simmer for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then I did it again.
Yeah.
And so another mentor of mine had told me to treat this like a client project. So I really did. And I really, put it into my daily routine and into our project management system, even to say, like, I'm working on this project. And that's how I got it done.
Wow.
Otherwise, as a business owner, I don't know how I would have ever gotten it done.
I think it might be a good way to do it is kind of like chunk it out, I think for me, if I could like maybe if I could audio book it or like, verbalize it, maybe like because I do a lot of like voice notes and
Yeah.
like voice to text. I think that potentially could work for me
Mm-hmm.
if I was able to just like talk, like take a chapter or subject and like just talk
Yep.
and then put it into text or record it and have AI transcribe whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I have a few folks in my network that have done that with ghostwriters too, where they take
Yeah.
voice notes and make it into a book, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah, different ways for different people.
for sure. I think everyone's a little different in their process, probably their creative process.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Was it worth it though, writing a book? Like, has it been, now that you're through it and looking back,
yeah.
are you glad that you did it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It helped me get my ideas out of my head and into a book for sure and organize some of that
Yeah.
value. Somebody once said a book is like the best possible business card to reflect who you are and
I've
your
heard
value
that for
prop.
sure. It's an asset.
It's an asset. Considering the audience here around founders and business owners, it's been the best possible way to have more of a stage and be at these
Yeah.
conferences and share your ideas with people and bring value to people.
Yes.
So it's a door opener for sure.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's almost like, before the internet, the books were like how you got on stages. Now we have the internet and social media, but books are still very prevalent. Like they're still really important, I think. But you also can do, if you didn't want to write a book, some people have done social media or video, or maybe they've done YouTube or LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever it is. And I'm like, that's cool that you can do it from that standpoint. Or podcasters, a lot of big podcasters.
Yeah.
But even a lot of those people end up writing books.
Yeah.
It's like kind of funny how that works.
Uh-huh.
And then the book writers end up doing content because they want to reach the audience online. And so I think they really can play hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on what you enjoy doing and what you want to put the
Exactly.
time into.
Yes.
We're putting together a Learning in the Wild workbook now in
Cool.
order to have that available for the retreats we're doing. So there's all kinds of ways to kind of put together that system depending
Yeah.
on what you're looking to do.
What would be the maybe couple sentence value prop if someone's thinking about, maybe I'll get this book. Maybe I'll pick this up.
Yeah, positioning as a learner so you can inspire more people in your world, on your team to learn as well.
Nice. That was very concise. You practiced that, I can tell. The last question I have is on your LinkedIn banner. It says, don't chase certainty, chase growth. What does that mean to you?
Just the idea that I feel like as business owners, as leaders, we're often always thinking about what a sure thing looks like. And to your point earlier about scale and efficiency, always chasing that North Star. And I think that's great to a point, but always pushing ourselves to continue to learn and ask those big questions so we don't get stuck following the North Star and realizing that's not something we wanted to pursue in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
So continuing to focus, yes, but also stay open and true to who you are and what you're really looking to grow in yourself and your people around you.
I think it's good to be obsessed with growing as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say business, you could say personal, but I think if you're obsessed with how do I get better?
Mm-hmm.
I want to get better than the person I was yesterday.
Yes.
I just think that's such a good place to come from, because then
Yes.
it's like the money or the scalability or this or the car you drive or whatever it is. It doesn't really move you as much as, am I doing something I'm fulfilled by? Am I making an impact? And am I growing? Am I getting better?
Yes.
And that's why it's actually easier to go through tough times when you fall back on, man, I'm going through this, but I was meant to go through this, right? Like I needed to go through this to learn some shit here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be tough, but I'm gonna come out the other side better for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Be better than you were yesterday. A fitness coach said that to me in Colorado a few years ago, and it's so applicable to every area of life, not just fitness.
Totally.
And yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like you can be grateful for the hard times as well as the good times, as long as you know you're working on yourself. And oftentimes people don't know what those things even are, and they don't need to know what those things are
Mhm.
because only you need to know. And as long as you feel like you're making your way and doing better, then you can weather those storms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Erin, I appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about what you guys do?
Yeah, desklightlearning.com is our website, and yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
I'm always up for a good chat.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming on. We'll link everything up in the description so people can find it.
Awesome.
Book, website, contact, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. So
Yeah, thanks for
Cool.
having me.
thanks for coming on.
Awesome.
Thanks.